So today we're going to be making this US flag challenge coin holder, and it'll be start to finish using a CNC and then finally finishing up by hand. So without further ado, here we go. Alright, right now we're setting up the 302 60-degree V-bit, and we're going to outline the union and the stripes. And the reason we're doing that is because I want to make sure I have an area to stain. It's just going to give me an outline to get the stain in. It's not going to be a big deal if you move the stain over into other areas it shouldn't be, but it certainly helps keep it a little cleaner, less cleanup on the other side of things. So that's what we're doing here. We're just outlining the stripes and the union. Take your stain. This is a barn red. It looks pretty good. Now we're going to do the union. You can do any color. I use brown. I think it looks good with the look. This is a 1/2-inch plywood. Nothing fancy. It's not birch. It's just regular big box plywood. It's not the. It's probably middle of the road quality. Here I'm taking a wire wheel. Just on my battery drill here. I'm scuffing things up, and then you go back over it with the stain because you want that stain to work its way into those scratch marks from that wire wheel. Here you see a 201 bit or a 1/4 inch end mill, and what it's doing here is just making the white stripes of the flag there, and it's really great with the stain because you don't have to be super careful with staining the lines. You put the stain down and let the 1/4 inch end mill do the rest of the work. It really doesn't bleed into those other areas anyhow, which isn't going to matter because after we do this, we're going to go in at some point and we're going to lightly stain those white stripes brown like the union. So here I'm setting up the 302 60-degree V-bit for the stars of the union. You just go in and you make sure that your stars are uniform. Sometimes if the wood is not level, the stars won't be uniform. So you just want to make sure your plywood is very flat. Now I'm starting to frame out the flag. One thing to remember, I like to do it this way just because it makes the flag look wider. You want your top and your bottom frame pieces to extend the whole length of the flag, meaning your end pieces of your frame you want to be inside of the two pieces that are on the top and bottom. Just makes it look longer. This is poplar that I'm using here, again from the big box store. Nothing fancy. And see, this is what I'm talking about with the top and bottom pieces being the longer pieces. Now I'm just scuffing it up on the ends here, just for something for the glue to grab onto. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some glue, run it across just a small bead there, and then nail it in with a brad nailer. The main thing here is you want to make sure that you got your sizes right. All your cuts are measured and cut correctly. Much like we did with the flag, I'm giving it one initial stain coat, and then what we'll do later is go over it with the wire wheel, create that texture, and then go over it again with the stain because you want that stain to work its way into those grooves. Gives it that textured old look, which is what we're going for with this flag. Here we are gluing on the frame. I always start with the side pieces because I want to make sure that they're lined up with the ends of the flag, because what I've noticed, if you don't do that and you put the top and bottom pieces on first, sometimes if you make a a wrong measurement, or if you don't check well enough, it's going to throw your frame off. It's just not going to be square. It's not going to look good. And you really want to make sure that you frame this up the same day that you cut the flag, because that plywood wants to warp from all the machining on the stripes and the union and then cutting it out. It just it wants to warp. So make sure you get this all framed up. It'll help give it some structure and make it rigid so that it doesn't bend. Don't worry too much about getting it exactly perfect. You'll be able to clean all that up as you see me doing here, leveling it out, even after you glue and nail everything. You want it to be as close as you can get it, and then you're going to fix it on the other end if there is anything that's not quite right. Important thing is just to make sure that these two side pieces are not too long, because if they're too long and you nail that top piece and that bottom piece on, there's not really a whole lot you can do to fix that. These side pieces are crucial, that they're as close to the top as they can be without being too long. You don't want to push that top piece up, that frame piece. I always start with putting 2 brad nails into the other frame pieces. That helps keep it sturdy. And then you kind of move the frame to outline the back of the plywood, which is what I'm checking there. Just doing a little glue squeeze out cleanup there. I like to clean as I go. It just makes finishing a lot easier. That was me checking to see what side looks best on that frame. You know, I always try to take a look and make the sides as uniform as possible. So if I have more texture on one side than the other, I'll flip it around so that everything looks like it goes together. Even though I did it all at the same time, sometimes you scuff things up a little more on one than the other, and you don't notice it while you're doing it, and then when you stain, it really shows. So you just want to take a look at that, make sure it looks very uniform. The idea is to not go back and stain after you've scuffed and stained. You just don't want to repeat that process. Things will start to look too dark and the shades will look different, and it'll be hard to match it up. Okay, so here I'm starting to fix in the coin holder rails there. And what I'm doing is I'm not measuring with a tape measure. I'm laying the pieces in and I'm marking them with the pencil. I found that that's the best way to do it. Don't try and measure this, because what's going to happen is it's not going to be right. It's not going to look as good as it will if you just lay it in there and mark it with a pencil. Now these are going to be pretty standard. I mean, each piece will go just about anywhere, but if you don't glue and nail these in, which I don't typically the same day, when you cut them, you're going to need to kind of test fit these before you nail them in and glue them in, because some will fit in better in different places. We didn't really see a whole lot of the texturing on the frame, but this is essentially what I do. I just go through and I randomly hit it with the wire wheel. Here I didn't stain first. I'm not sure why I didn't do that, but typically I do. I'll stain it one time, hit it with the wire wheel, stain it again to get it down into the grooves, and then do any finish sanding I need to, just to smooth it out. All right, so this is how I cut the lines for the coins. I don't have a router table, so I just use my CNC. I lay it down, I put a 1/4 inch end mill, and I just make, I believe it's 32 thousandths wide by 40 thousandths deep. And this is just a 2x1 piece of whitewood. Very inexpensive to get 12-foot pieces. So that's what I do. Now we're going to go in and we're going to glue and nail the coin holder rows onto the flag. I'm measuring down from the top to the bottom of the stripe. You want the coin holder rows to rest on the bottom of the white stripe and on top of the red stripes. That little lip that's created there when you machine. Then you'll just glue and nail it on, and the glue does all the work. The nails are just holding it down till the glue dries. The important thing to remember is to not put the nails too high on the coin holder. You don't want them poking through where the coins will rest. Sometimes what I'll do is, if I've got an unusually warped piece of whitewood that I got, you can still use it. What you do is you nail and then you lay some clamps down. So I'll put 2 pieces of wood on each end and I'll clamp it top and bottom real snug down to the flag so that it's even and flat. And I didn't show this, but if you notice, the stripes on the flag are even with the frame or just below it. And that's about what you want. You don't want the stripes, the coin holder stripes, to be out past the frame. So just make sure that once you cut your coin holder stripes that they don't stick out beyond the frame. And you can fix that by cutting them down on the table saw. Or if you have your CNC machine, you can cut them short. I don't do that with the CNC. I just use the table saw. It's just much quicker. Here I am going through just backfilling, nail holes, any gouges that are unusually big. You want it to look rough, but you know, polished. So you got to find that happy medium. Here's the finished product. What I do is I like to go in and seal it with some polyacrylic water base, and it really gives it that matte look, which is great. That's what I'm going for. You don't see it in the video, but after everything is together and assembled, I'll take my sander and some 220, and I'll knock that brown all the way off of those coin holder rails as well as the frame to expose only the stain that got down into the grooves of the flag, and it gives it that white look. I leave the union as is. I like it to be darker. Again, I didn't show this in the video, but I also sand the red stripes as well. Not as heavily as the white. I want the red to be more prominent, but when you sand it, it does show those scuff marks, so that gives it a good look too, that worn look that you're looking for in this particular flag. To hang the flag, I use 2 sawtooth hangers on the back top of the top frame piece, and the flag will hold around 65 coins, you know, depending on the size of the coins, maybe more if you don't have too many large coins. And it really doesn't weigh that much. I think 13 pounds maybe, so it's pretty light. But here's the finished product. Overall, it takes me a couple days just because I like to let the stain dry in between the stages. I'll link all the tools and materials that I use down in the notes, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I sure would appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next project.